These are the mind-blowing alien revelations ever discussed on Joe Rogan Postcard. Episode 2314 with Hal Puthoff. Joe Rogan dives into claims of 10-plus recovered alien craft and hidden tech.
How many of these crashed crafts do you estimate there are that human beings have recovered?
More than 10.
More than 10?
More than 10.
How many of them are in possession of people in the United States?
I meant more than 10 in possession of the United States.
What about worldwide?
Worldwide?
Do we have any data on that?
We have data, but it's classified. There's no way to really talk about it.
But so there's more, though. You could safely say it's not just the ones in the United States.
Not just the ones in the United States, and these
are they equally distributed?
I don't know for sure in terms of data. I mean, we have our best data, of course, on our own retrievals.
But more than 10 retrieved in the United States.
More than 10 retrieved.
What is your take on Bob Lazar?
Well, we looked into the Bob Lazar story, and but only, from a certain relatively superficial level. Looked at, we found out what his clearance levels supposedly were and so on, which came back saying it was not high enough to be doing what he says he was doing. On the other hand, it may just simply be, it was better than that, but we didn't have the access to see that. So when I hear his physics descriptions, it's a puzzle. It seems not exactly as I would anticipate might be the technology behind the craft, but I can't absolutely write him off. So it's an enigma, and I don't have any hard data to prove one way or the other. So it's I know you've talked to him. And,
it's a fascinating puzzle.
It is a fascinating puzzle.
Because that would be the place, S4 would be the place where they would do that kind of work. I mean, if you wanted to do something like that in complete privacy and secrecy, you'd do it in the middle of the Nevada desert, very protected.
That's true. Right.
Outside of Area 51.
So even when people that have high clearances go and say, well, tell me about this. What's behind this? Who knows? If it's a special access program, an SAP, it might be, say, no, we're going to tell you that, he didn't do anything of significance here. In fact, he might have done something of significance. There's just no way of telling from the outside.
Yeah. So the actual generator, the thing that powers the craft that Lazar talked about, what was your take on that? This idea that it was element 115, that when it encounters high radiation, it has some sort of an anti-gravitational effect, some warp effect.
Well, there are two aspects. One is, what is the material or mechanisms that generate the effects? And then the other is, are the effects being described reasonable descriptions of the kind of effects you think are associated with such craft? On the element 115, as you know, in the general scientific community, we've seen element 115, but it's very short-lived. So it's hard to evaluate that, and at this point, there's no evidence that's it. But his description of the anti-gravity effects and so on, that's an area that is well described as what you might expect. As it turns out, in that series of 38 papers, one of my own papers that I provided was one called Space-Time Metric Engineering. And when the pilots came to me and said, drops down, takes off, right-angle turn at Mach 10, this is way beyond our physics. And I said earlier, no, I think it's not beyond our physics, beyond our engineering. But what I did on the physics level was all of our electronics that we have here, for example, this microphone, the recording that you're making, and so on, that's all based on electromagnetic kinds of technologies, all of which come out of Maxwell's equations. Maxwell's equations Clerk Maxwell, way back in the 1800s, developed the equations for electromagnetism. And basically any kind of electromagnetic device, you name it, Wi-Fi, whatever, can be traced back to his equations. So what I said to myself was, okay, we have these apparent craft operating with this unbelievable kinds of activity. Is there any way to account for that in our physics? Well, it turns out. So what I did, I took a sheet of paper, and the left-hand side of the paper, I wrote down all the weird effects that have been claimed. Right angle turn at Mach 10. I got close to the craft, and suddenly it wasn't the same size as it seemed to be when I was further away. It was a certain color, but when I got close to it, it was a different color. All these weird things. To me, the weirder the better, because if somebody was just making up a BS story, they want it to sound rational. So you don't come up with things like, well, I got in the craft, 5 minutes went by, I came out, and 2 hours had gone by. I mean, you're just not going to make that up. Then on the right-hand side of the piece of paper, I said, okay, we have Einstein's equations in general relativity, and we use them to talk about black hole mergers or neutron star mergers or whatever. And all these things are massively energetic events. Suppose I could engineer Einstein's equations the way we engineer Maxwell's equations for electromagnetic effects. What would I expect to see? And I find out I got a hand-in-glove match between what was claiming to be observed and, what Einstein's equation, if you could engineer them. Well, why can't we engineer them? Well, what we know today is the energy density required to engineer those equations is just way beyond our ability to do so.
Can you give me a comparison to what the energy requirements or something like that would be like?
Yeah, people have in fact, Alcubierre warp drive. I don't know if you've heard of that, but Miguel Alcubierre was a researcher in general relativity and kind of a Star Trek fan and so on. And he said, I wonder if we could really have warp drive. And so he used Einstein's equations to say, okay, under what conditions could we do a warp drive? And he actually came up with solutions from out of the equations. Okay, what would it take to drive that? Oh, it would be hundreds of times more than the energy of the sun. I mean,
wow.
Just out of sight energy. So, until we have a new energy source or until there's some back door that we haven't, zeroed in on, it's just really outside of our expertise.
In episode 2083, Joe Rogan and Taylor Sheridan explore the idea that aliens have always been here. Episode 1216 with Sir Roger Penrose, exploring ancient signals, past universes, and the possibility of alien intelligence.
When you discuss the cosmos, maybe the single most intriguing possibility to us as human beings is what other intelligent life, if any, is out there. And how interesting is that to you? Because you spend so much time studying the fundamental particles of the universe itself. How interested are you in the possibility of other intelligent life forms? Or have you just put that out into it's just so ridiculously unlikely or so far away from us that we're probably never going to make contact?
Well, you see, it's not so... There's this SETI program where they're looking to see whether they can see signals from distant civilizations. The problem there, from my perspective, is that although they might be out there, they've got to have had a real head start on us before you would see them. Of course, they might have done so. But then, I don't know. You see, actually, Vahir Gurzajan, who's my Armenian colleague, and who looked also for these ring-shaped things, and looked at them in a different way from the Polish people. But we seem to have seen something there. But we wrote a paper in which we speculated on beings from the previous eon. communicating with us. And the advantage there is that you're looking at the really advanced civilizations,
really
right at the very end, you
civilizations
see.
Billions of years ago, that their universe disappeared and then had to come back to a Big Bang state again.
The signals could come through, yes.
And somehow or another, those signals remain.
It's conceivable. I agree it's pretty far-fetched, but, who knows what...
So eons, how many billions of years are you talking about? Like the Big Bang was 14 billion?
Yes. But you see, that's way at the beginning in a sense, or it's 3/4 of the way through in another sense. It depends how you draw the pictures.
Right.
In the sense of interestingness or in the conformal picture, we are already 3/4 of the way through.
So 14 billion to now, so we have how many billion left?
You can't count it as years, you see. The trouble is it's a cheat.
It's a cheat.
The year count is as much as you like. It depends on something else. The mass has to fade out, and how you measure time becomes problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either infinity, you see, which isn't much use, or you might have a different definitions of time, which depend on what particle you're using as your clocks and things like that.
So are you essentially saying that it's entirely possible that we are the furthest in terms of our technological achievement and our understanding of the universe itself? It's possible that we're at the front of the line, that there might be some other intelligent life forms in the universe, but they might be behind us.
Well, there would have been... I mean, I'm not saying they got through, you see. Well,
Right.
maybe they have techniques for getting through, but that's a bit hard to imagine. But maybe information from them could get through, and maybe...
You mean from the previous eon?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
they might have got through, like somehow or another survived.
Yes, but it would have to be in the form of photons or something. Yeah, no, you could... It's not... I'm talking about ridiculous speculation
Sure,
now.
but
So,
encoding information
Yes.
into photons?
yes.
Wow.
It's conceivable.
Sure.
Now, I don't want to say that I see it happening or anything, but it's not out of the question that they could develop some technology which would get information, which might be them in some sense, across in the form of photons.
But you're not optimistic about current intelligent life somewhere in the universe?
Not too optimistic, just because... well, maybe it took us a long time to get going because the dinosaurs were there for a while, and somebody might have got in there earlier in their different planet, and they could have got there quite ahead of us. It's conceivable. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm just not terribly optimistic about it. No, I think it's worth doing. It's worth looking.
Yes, but it's not something that you're really curious about.
I'm expecting. It's not so much. I'd be curious certainly, but I'm not expecting it, I guess.
Is it just because of the overall lack of real evidence, and it's just not an attractive thing for you to pursue?
It's quite attractive.
It certainly would be.
I don't know. I've just been doing other things, and I don't know. There's enough to do in the world. I haven't really come to terms with it very hugely. So I know there's this activity, and I'd be interested to see if any kind of, if there was this thing that came past that some people speculated was sent there by a different intelligence, which came quite close in our solar system.
Oh, that was that strange-looking cigar-shaped
thing. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any real reason to believe it's an alien spaceship.
Was it because of the way it was traveling? That was the idea?
Yes, it was something.
Something curious about it?
Serious people did suggest it might be something sent by an alien civilization. Well, it's worth, if one could connect with it in some way. But I don't know. I guess it's too far away now.
Well, it's another thing that's so uniquely fascinating for us, the concept of another life form out there.
Oh, sure.
Episode 2259 with Thomas Campbell, exploring virtual reality, consciousness, and shocking new explanations for alien encounters. Rogan and Steven Tyler dive into aliens, conspiracies, and the wild truth behind UFO culture.
Have you not watched Unacknowledged?
What is Unacknowledged?
You got to watch Unacknowledged.
What is that one?
Okay, you got to watch Unacknowledged.
What is it?
You got to watch Unacknowledged.
Is that Stephen Greer movie?
No.
It is. Yeah,
It
it
is?
is. Yeah, listen to me, man.
No?
No.
No good, huh?
No. There's a fucking industry, and the industry is in people wanting to get mysteries solved. The great mystery of is there life out there, and nobody has any answers. I did this show for Sci-Fi called Joe Rogan Questions Everything, and before that show, I was a hardcore believer in a lot of wonky conspiracies like Bigfoot and aliens. I just loved them because they seem so interesting.
I don't live in Bigfoot.
You don't live in Bigfoot?
No, I don't believe in
Bigfoot's the most plausible.
You think so?
Yes.
Wow, why?
Because there was an animal called a Gigantopithecus that
Yeah, there
lived
was.
alongside human beings as recently as 100,000 years ago. It was a real, absolutely real animal.
Okay.
And they found fossilized bones of these things, and they found teeth from an apothecary shop in China. There was a real animal. It was a gigantic bipedal hominid that was somewhere around 8 to 10 feet tall. So this thing lived at the same time people did. So this is probably the reason why there's this myth of Bigfoot, that at one point in time, this was a real thing.
No, but what about that they're walking around now?
Probably not.
That's what I'm saying.
Most likely not.
That was what I was saying. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a giant,
Yeah, but there's, a lot of people.
So tell me
that,
about aliens. Tell me about.
most is a business. Most of it
Well,
is business.
what about the Air Force general that said did that tape, gave it to his wife,
Yeah.
and said, "Don't put this out until I'm dead." Did you not feel as though when he was speaking, any of that was real?
I think
You've seen that, right?
I think too many.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. I've seen a lot of those
There's
people.
one in
There's
particular.
a lot of former military people that say they've seen crazy things, and it's entirely possible that they really did. It's entirely possible, but it's also possible that they're crazy. It's possible that they love attention. It's possible that they're bored. It's possible that they're schizophrenic. It's possible that they have memories that they've concocted over the years and enhanced, and it's gotten them attention, and it's putting them in documentaries, and it gets them interviews on television programs. But that there's no evidence, and the problem with all these people is they all have this same feeling about them, and they're not. There's very few of them that come across as rational and objective. Most of them come across as there's something wrong. There's wires that aren't connecting. If you talk to them about other things in life, like if you had a chance to talk to them for a long period of time, sit down with them for 3 hours, ask them about ghosts and psychics and all kinds of other shit. They almost all believe in that stuff. They're believers.
Yeah.
They want to believe in nonsense.
I hear you. As soon as that crops up, I'm out of the room.
But it's possible not just possible. It's 100% likely that there's alien life out there. Likely.
100%. I'm glad you said that. You kind of scared me for a second.
No, I think it's more
I
likely
just love that
there
movie
is.
because it kind of had a nice thread through.
That movie's horseshit.
Okay.
There's a lot of those movies that are horseshit. And that guy, he knows some of that's horseshit. Like there's a little baby that they had found that's an aborted fetus. They were trying to pass that off as an alien baby for a long time. But they have genome
You don't believe
tests.
that we're hybrids?
No.
What do
I
you?
don't
What do
believe
you?
they're hybrids.
Can you tell me about the link
What link?
between monkeys and us? Seriously,
Well,
between the
well,
two
this is-
frontal lobes and the brain of
Sure.
the monkey.
well, we are hominids. I mean, we are primates, and we're just the most advanced primate. The real question is, how did we get to be so much more
That's
advanced?
That's what I asked you.
Well, it's more likely
That
that we
link.
found fire and our diet changed and hunting, and then the stoned ape theory, which is a very fascinating theory. The stoned ape theory is Terence McKenna's theory that
I know, I
human
read that.
beings found psilocybin mushrooms,
yeah.
and that through the use of psilocybin mushrooms, which in low doses increases visual acuity, produces these ecstatic states, that it might have helped us develop language and communication and creativity, and that this in turn was the reason why the human brain doubled in size over a period of 2 million years, which is the greatest mystery in the history of the fossil record. They don't know why they did it, but there's a very clear path
So
between
then you do
lower
believe the humans were
hominids-
here a million years ago?
Humans?
Well,
Some
whatever. Hominids.
some form of
Okay.
primate was certainly here millions of years ago, as was deer. Deer were here millions of years ago.
Okay,
There's
good,
a lot
good.
of animals.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, please.
No, it's okay. I don't know. The
I
thing
feel
is,
that. I feel like, just because there was an ice age, it was how many 100,000 years was the ice age?
well, there's been a bunch of ice ages, but the most recent one ended somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 years ago.
That was nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
From beginning to end. So we don't know what caused it.
Well, when the Ice Age exists, we have to remember that some parts of the world aren't experiencing the Ice Age, and then humans thrived in Africa during parts of the Ice Age. I mean, there's a lot of human beings that live all over the world. The real question is, where did they start? Most likely from Africa, but they could have possibly started from some other places too, and we're starting to learn that.
Well, that's
but the people that are learning
Pangea
that,
thing, right?
the people that are learning, no, not really.
Why?
Well, I mean, there's that too, but I mean, mostly just people traveling. But what you really learn from is archaeologists. Those are the people you learn from, and biologists, people that really understand the human genome. They really understand the differences between people that emerge from China versus people that emerge from Western Europe versus people that emerge from or Native Americans. I mean, there's so many different types of human beings that came from different climates and that their bodies evolved from these places. And there's real science to that. You're not going to get that from these goofy fucking documentaries. These goofy fucking documentaries are basically a business. And the business is there's a bunch of people out there that want to know the answers. What is the truth? And so you get, I was aboard the secret UFO. I saw the magnetic controller that makes us travel through the cosmos and bend time and space. It's like a wormhole. And they'll say a bunch of sciencey sounding shit, but there's no evidence. There's nothing. When they talk about it, there's nothing.
Will you what's David? Wilcock. You know David? No. Again, another one? Really?
That guy says that he is the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Do you know that? Did you know that?
Yeah, I've heard.
Do you know who Edgar Casey is?
Yeah, of course.
Famous psychic who never really figured out anything.
Understood.
And thought to be a fraud, most widely by scientists and skeptics.
Drinking too much laudanum.
Laudanum? Is that what he did?
Don't you think?
I don't know. I don't know what
Everything
he did.
was written and everybody was stoned.
Well, I think
when you
there's
talk
also
about the psychedelic, psilocybin mushrooms, opiates, laudanum, the last 100 years,
how do you say it?
laudanum.
Laudanum?
Laudanum.
Laudanum?
Everyone was drinking that shit.
Yeah, right.
But look,
Yeah,
there's
yeah, that shit was in that.
Japanese. They never left the island. Do a lot of Japanese have the same eyes shapes?
Yes, they do.
Is there a reason?
Well, there's a reason why
they didn't leave the island and come back after mating with anybody else.
So
they stayed on that body of land.
Do you think they're from aliens?
No, absolutely not. It's just that they stayed on that plot of land.
Sure. But wouldn't you agree that
American
a lot
Indians,
of people from Asia look fairly similar?
Yeah, I do.
There's variations in the similarities, but they were similar, right?
But I think it took millions of years. That's my take. Look, I can't prove anything.
No, they do believe it took millions of years.
I always finish stuff by saying, I didn't see it.
Right.
When I go out at night in Maui and walk around, I'm dying to see UFO.
Me too.
So are you. Because
Everybody
the second I see one,
right,
that will make clear shit like, the song I wrote called Back When Cain Was Able, way before anyways, about a mothership and shit. Way before I knew anything about UFOs.
Did you ever see anything when you did psychedelics? When you did drugs, whether you did mushrooms
I
or
never
acid
saw anything that wasn't there.
For sure.
I'm not that kind of people.
No.
I'm not the kind of people.
Some people have, though, and the idea is that there are things that are out there in neighboring dimensions that you're really not capable of accessing them.
Yeah.
That's where the real aliens live.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but I just know that all these people that are pushing it, they all have, there's fuckery involved in all these people.
No,
that's
hear
a real
you.
problem.
I hear you.
Because it's fun. It's fun. You want to believe, right? You want to believe that there's a general out there that's seen a spaceship that's under the mountain. Tell me about it, Mr. General. And he goes on a lecture tour, and you got to pay money to see him, and he's in a documentary, and there's a lot of those people out there, man. And
I live with it. I was backstage with Joe Perry. What'd you do? Yes, my whole life.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. The wow of the thrill of the story. But,
people love to tell stories.
There's something inside me that says, you know what? They still haven't found that missing link. That between
if you talk to biologists
and
they
how
say
the apes
that's
stood up
horseshit.
because they're
but they
walking
do
through
they
the
have but they
savannas.
have Australopithecus fossils. They have the things that were like us that are different from a long fucking time ago. They have those.
And the size of the brain.
Yeah,
the two frontal lobes.
The brain changed. It doubled over a period of 2 million years. I mean that did happen, but. They know what we used to be. There are simple hominids that were, or rather ancient hominids that are very similar to human beings, and they slowly became human beings. And there's also, they keep finding all these different versions of human beings. Like there wasn't just Homo sapiens, and of course there was Neanderthals, but there was the one from Russia. What was that called? That was in that book, Hominid. What is that? Dion, I can't remember though. It starts with a D, but it's a one that they've found very recently. Very recently. You find it, Jamie? Yeah. Here it is. Denisovan hominin, an extinct species of subspecies of archaic humans. They found in the 1970s by the Russian paleontologist Nikolai Oldov. So there's been a bunch of different forms of humans. We're just the most successful form of human. The idea that it's just alien DNA connected with people, it's sexy. It sounds fun, but there's no evidence.
I hear you. But isn't that what we are as humans?
Well, we are mutations. We are an ancient thing that slowly figured its way out. We became better at seeing things. We became better at hunting. We became better at harnessing fire.
Where do you think free will came from?
There's a lot of people that don't even believe it's real. They believe in determinism. They don't even believe that free will is an actual thing. I mean, I've heard Sam Harris argue it pretty successfully, that there is no such thing as free will, that you are an accumulation of your genetics, your life experiences, all the things that have happened to you, the people that you've come in contact with.
That's true. Behavioral.
And that forms
behavioral psychology. That's
your
true.
behavior. Think about your behavior.
Yeah.
And how much of your behavior is shaped by millions of adoring fans and people screaming and cheering you on and singing songs that move people and literally change generations, give people goosebumps when they hear them. I mean, all that stuff has shaped who you are. I mean, all that stuff changes who a person is. And who you are now and the way you behave now is in many ways shaped by your life experiences as much as it is by your genetics. And you wouldn't be this person if you hadn't lived that life. And the decisions that you make from this moment on, right now, leave the studio and have a conversation with someone, will be shaped, at least in part, by this conversation. And mine will be by my conversation with you. This is what the idea behind determinism.
Okay, so I would ask, who said this? Who was into this?
There's many people that come up with this concept, but I've heard it. It was really argued to me by Sam Harris the most successfully.
Wow, interesting. I just wonder why then, certain monkeys, certain breeds of monkeys, smart ones, bonobos, I love them because I'm a bonobo, but they'll put a stick in something and pull out shilajit, but
well, that's also
they haven't well, wait a minute now, then. They haven't gone past that. So.
Well, do you know primatologists actually believe that chimpanzees have entered the Stone Age? This is one thing that's being considered now, that they've started the use of tools on a regular basis.
Okay.
They think that they're learning from each other, they think that if they are evolving, right, and if human beings evolved over a period of millions of years, we are actually watching chimpanzees evolve in real time.
Well, I think so too.
A long process that'll take millions of years, but they have entered the Stone Age. So they think that, who knows, with a series of mutations, with natural selection, with a bunch of different things happening, what a chimpanzee is today, most likely it will be a different thing in 2 million years.
Of course it will.
Yeah. And
I totally agree on that.
Right. That these intelligent animals, they're going to experiment with things. Here it is. Macaques often use stone tools.
Sure
Monkeys
they
have
do.
been living in the Stone Age for 50 years. So for 50 years, these animals, just 50, okay?
I'm not sure about that. That's when somebody first saw them using the stone.
True. Well, in terms of primatologists observing behavior.
Get you.
So these archaeologists have uncovered stone tools they believe these animals have used. So,
or other humans.
Yeah, or other humans.
Because you can't figure stone out.
Right.
Now, when you look, what do you think about when you look up I don't know the answers. That's why I got my girls.
Well, I definitely don't know the answers either. Again, remember, I just repeat shit smart people have figured out. That's all I'm doing.
What about the stones that are cut up in, not Machu Picchu, but up in wherever?
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Those, the laser cuts.
Not laser, but very precise cuts. Yeah.
Whoever it was.
Most likely advanced civilizations that have been wiped out by cataclysms.
And that's what I'm saying. So my mind goes to, fuck yeah, we were here.
Something
we went
was
underground.
Here.
There's places, I saw movies of it, where you go into the mountain, you go back 3 miles in the mountain.
Right.
Have you seen this?
Yeah, there
caves?
are. Yeah, there's incredible cave
3
systems.
fucking miles back.
But there's natural cave systems.
Giant rooms like this in there.
There's natural cave systems in Texas that go back miles into the mountains.
So I'm
into
just
the hills,
saying,
I should say.
That's where my head goes with this. Ghosts, come on. That's your own fear.
I don't know, but you know where you're talking about Muscle Shoals?
Yeah.
The feeling in that room. There might be a similar feeling when a violent encounter happens in a house. That might be what a ghost is. What a ghost is might be this thing that you can't capture, you can't put it in a box, you can't weigh it on a scale, but you get a feeling when you're in a place where something horrible happened, and you can feel it. It's not impossible to imagine that that's the case. And Rupert Sheldrake was the guy that I told you believed that, and he's a scientist, and some people would argue against it, but that he believes that things have memory, and that it's possible that even this table has memory. All the people that have sat where you sat.
I think it's got a vibe. I'm not sure if it's memory. You know what's got memory? Water. Nobody knows about that yet. Water.
Right.
Because it never goes anywhere. You can never get rid of water.
It's true.
You can boil it, steam it, it goes up, it comes back down. So
right.
I think when they find out the memory in water, I also got to tell you.
In episode 1351, Dan Aykroyd joins Joe to explore crystal skull mysteries and chilling alien abduction stories.
I want to talk to you about the story of the crystal skulls themselves, because there's this strange sort of folklore attached to them, and then there's a lot of people that believe that it's all horseshit and that these were created by modern people and buried underground in order to...
Well, my understanding of it is, there you go.
Cheers again.
Yeah, indeed. That's just the citrus model, the crystal driver. There were 13 heads, and it was purported that the Navajo, the Anasazi, the Mayans, the Aztec each had one. The most famous one is the Mitchell Hedges skull, which was found in the Yucatan by Anna Mitchell Hedges. She reached into a cave. She was with her grandfather, and it was around 1926, and she reached in, and there was an oilcloth covered item in there, and she pulled it out and opened it up, and there was the two-piece detachable jaw Mitchell Hedges skull. Beautiful skull. The Hewlett-Packard engineers did a test on it in the 60s. They said it could not have been carved by a lapidary, by tools. It had to have been polished over hundreds of years, over centuries, to get to the shape that it was. So they said it was a polished item. Let's see. There's the Mitchell Hedges skull, the Phyllis Newman skull named Max. She says,
wasn't that later decided by some people that this was not the case?
I'm gonna exactly get to that point, because of course it's important. It doesn't affect my business whether they're fake or not. These were beautiful artifacts, and we've recreated it beautifully. But it's nice to know the true story, and I have kind of a thought on the theory either way. So there's the Phyllis Newman skull named Max. She has to put it in the closet because it talks to her. There's one.
Wait. Hit the brakes. I'm gonna have to hit the brakes a bunch with you. You're an excellent talker, sir.
Oh well, I was inoculated with a gramophone needle at birth. I could talk a taxi dispatcher into a vow of silence. I could talk an air raid siren to scrap. But
and you're obviously Canadian because you said slag.
Yeah, there you go.
I used to date a Canadian gal. She loved that term.
Oh, wow. That's another tangent, Canadian gals and Canadian guys. So the Philip Newman skull, she got it. Its name is Max. She has to put it in the closet because it talks to her, she said. So there's the Mitchell Hedges.
Has it?
Yes, she does. Phyllis has that one. Then there's the Mitchell Hedges skull that's in Indiana. The man that took care of Anna at the end of her life eventually had it and got it. It sat in Grafton, Ontario for many years, and I never saw it, but people said when they walked into the room and she uncovered it with the cloth she kept it in, that there was an immediate feeling of well-being and healing coming over to look at the original Mitchell Hedges skull. There's one in Mexico City. It's one of our minis. It's got a cross stuck right in the top of it, which is, that would shatter crystal if you did that. How that cross got there, I don't know. There's one at the Smithsonian in Washington, and two at the Smithsonian, Washington, D.C., and one at the Victoria and Albert Museum. So there's supposed to be 8 that we have and 5 that we're missing. The woman at the Smithsonian who has the 2 there, I think they're a cloudy orange one and a cloudy green one, and they're smaller. She says they're all fakes, that they were carved by a German lapidary in the 1800s, and that he seeded them around the world. Well, wait a minute. I think one was found in Tibet. One was found in Ohio, we're hearing, at the Serpent Mounds.
Why does she think this one gentleman did it?
Because he was an expert lapidary. He had the tools to do it, and she figures her theory is that they're not artifacts polished by tribal hands and passed down, that they're all fakes. But it's just, wait a minute, he would have had to have had an airship to go and deposit these wherever they might be around the world. You can get the pictures of the skulls up, the Smithsonian crystal heads, and the Smithsonian crystal heads you can get in Victoria Albert crystal head.
Do they all have the same similar type of markings?
There's theirs. Yes, they do. They all have the same. Now, You see, some of them are more are clearer. See, there's one at the British Museum, and there's some that are clearer and are more beautiful, and there's some that are rougher, like that one there, and the green and the orange one. But she says all fakes. But if they're all fakes, how did they get to these different places around the world, and how were they found?
Well, here's the thing. But why fake? The word fake is very strange. Because it's like they are certainly real carved crystal skulls.
But were they from tribal ancestry?
Right.
That's the question.
Who made them? Is the question.
Who
were
made
they
them?
From modern Western
and
people?
And how? Were they polished or were they carved? That's the thing. Aren't they beautiful? Oh, God.
What do the indigenous people say? They say they found them?
The Navajo say they came from the Star Children, that they were brought down and deposited and given to them as crystal ball devices, scrying devices too.
What's that one down there, Jamie? Keep scrolling where you were.
The green is beautiful.
The one on the left right there that looks almost like a real skull. Oh, it is a real skull.
Yeah, no, the green is beautiful. So I guess, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a professional historian. I guess I have to trust the lady at the Smithsonian, but then I question, they were found at different times in history around the world. How do you go and seed? How do you deposit them there?
Why does she believe that? Has she given a coherent reason why she thinks that they're all hoaxes?
I guess she's done her analysis, whatever they've done, to their skulls. But again, the Hewlett-Packard engineers took that Mitchell Hedges skull and they said this have not have been polished. It would have been cracked or destroyed. It could not have been built by tools. It would have been cracked or destroyed. It had to have been polished. Yeah.
So, but what about some sort of a very fast-moving drill with a diamond bit on it that can slowly grind down?
Well, there'd be marks that would be visible under the scanner.
Couldn't you polish those marks down?
I think that the intensity of the Hewlett-Packard scrutiny revealed that there were none of those marks, and that's why they were able to make their claim.
Here's the problem with this: is like you want them to be real, right? Don't you?
Oh yeah, I love the legend.
I do too. I do too. But I don't trust me.
No, neither do I.
So
that's why I say openly.
When you're saying all these things, I want to believe you. I want them to be from the sky people.
Mm-hmm. I do too, but again, you've got a professional in Washington at our National Museum there who says no, they're not.
Yeah, but what does she know?
Well, we could.
She might be one of them. We should
get her on the phone.
She might be a party pooper.
I think that she's probably as in love with the skulls, even though they are, not polished in her mind. I bet she loves them as much as we do.
But the thing is, if you are a professional intellectual or someone who's a curator of fine artwork and ancient relics, you kind of have to be one of those people that dismisses anything preposterous. Because if not...
That's right, like Neil Tyson. Don't you love him?
Yes, I love him to death.
I love Neil. But there's no way you can sit down and say, Neil, Barney and Betty Hill were abducted by a flying saucer in 1957. He's not going to accept that. Because he can't accept that. Because everything in his training, everything in his knowledge, everything that he knows about physics and science and propulsion in the universe and how to get from place to place defies the legend, or I would say defies the theory that there are extraterrestrial advanced ships out there. He can't accept it. It's just, it would be unprofessional for him to say, okay, there's even a possibility that there were abductions. But
the Betty and Barney Hill story is very interesting, but there's no real evidence other than their testimony. Is that correct?
Well, there was a stain on Betty's dress. There's her excellent recall. He was unconscious.
What was the stain on her dress that's so interesting to you?
It was a fluid that they used in the testing, that some kind of a fluid,
a
chemical.
Alien testing?
That they did when they drew ova from her and they drew sperm from him. Now, so there's a book out called Contact by Stanton Friedman.
I read that.
Kathleen, I'd love to know where the car is. Where the Chevy they were driving.
Oh, it disappeared?
Where is that? I don't know. I'd have to ask Kathleen where it is. Did it end up in a junkyard? Because there were marks on the back of the car as well. There were trace evidence in the back of the car. Ted Phillips he goes around the world collecting trace evidence and radioactive signatures from sightings and landings. On the back of the car, there was a couple of marks, but it was Betty's. It's their credibility. Why would they want to bring this into their lives? And she was conscious. Semi-conscious through much of it, and Barney was not conscious. He was unconscious. If you hear the tapes of Ben Simon's interviews with them under hypnosis, the screaming and he was just so frightened.
Yeah.
And the Zeta Reticuli map, when the being Betty looked at the map and the being showed her a map as she was on her way out the door, and she said, "May I take this?" And the being was going to give it to her, but then another one zipped up and said, "No." You can't have this.
Zeta Reticuli is exactly the same place where Bob Lazar says they found those with the spaceships that they have at Area or S4.
Well, the Little Greys, Zeta Reticuli, Barney and Betty's abduction. You had Marjorie Fish, an amateur astronomer. She took the memory of Betty's. Betty drew up the star map, and she did a three-dimensional scale model of that part of the universe, and was able to identify Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, and accepted by astronomers. So that map that Betty saw aboard that ship had not been seen on Earth before.
And Betty has no history of astronomy, or no studying it?
No, none of it at all. And you know, interesting things like when they got back to the house, the house was open, and the keys to the house were on the table with leaves, so that they might have dropped them at the site, and the beings returned them. Now, you know who Bud Hopkins was?
Yes.
He said that since he studied the Linda Cortile case, where the woman was floated out of her apartment building over the East River, and Orange Orb picked her up, plunged into the river.
He was the guy.
Bud was an artist. He was a graphic artist. He was a designer, a painter, and a lovely man. And he was one of the first people to start to deal with the trauma of abductees. He got a reputation for being able to interview them, hypnotize them, interview them, and get their stories and empathize and sympathize with them. And he said that in some cases that he studied, the beings would grab a man from somewhere in America and grab a woman and out of their cars, out of their clothes, put them up, test them, draw ova, draw sperm, fluids, whatever they were doing. And then the woman would wake up in the man's shoes or a different car, or almost as if the beings were finished with them. I don't care where they go now. Yeah, put them back, you know, that kind of thing. He said that was the oddest phenomena.
Like releasing a trout.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I think that's it. If you catch a trout, you catch a big rainbow trout and you're fly fishing, and you got a barbless hook. You know, most people, if you go to Montana, go to the Gallatin River, shout out to the Gallatin.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous place. People catch and release because they appreciate that the trout are there. They'd rather go buy halibut from a store and not eat the fish because they want the salmon to be healthy. They want the trout to be healthy.
Well,
so they catch them. And then they release them. But if you're a brown trout, well, brown trout are invasive. But if you're a rainbow trout, and someone catches you, and you know they take you on some 200-yard run down this river as they're trying to draw you in. It's a big 9-pound rainbow, catch of a lifetime,
Beautiful
right?
time.
And some guy pulls it on, takes pictures of it, like shows it, and then releases it. And then this thing's like, how the fuck did I get here? What am I doing outside of my universe?
Yeah.
What am I doing in this other dimension of air where I can't breathe?
Precisely. Yeah, and that's catch and release.
Catch and release with people.
Travis Walton says, you know, you got to think of them as just people from over there. They're just
he's
people
the
from
guy
over
the
there.
Fire in the Sky movie was based on. He's got another interesting story. Here's what I want people
credibility
to think.
there, and credibility with Barney and Betty. I just don't think they're lying, and I don't think the Ariel school children are lying.
I don't want to think they're lying. This is the problem that I have with it. I want to believe them. But this is what I want people to consider, because most people that are pragmatic, reasonable people that don't want to be ridiculed, they look at these stories and they go, oh, come on, people are full of shit. And I've been there too. But I want people to imagine that if aliens did occasionally visit Earth, how often do you think this would take place? And how it would be very infrequently. And if it was happening, these would be completely unique, unusual occurrences out of nowhere where someone would come down, they would do something, and they would be leaving the person with this thought and this memory and this inability to describe it with normal words. If you were taken aboard a spaceship and you were some reptilian beings that were 3 feet tall were running experiments on you and you were paralyzed, and then they released you back on Earth, what words do you have available to you to describe this experience in a way that, like, if you tell me, hey, Joe, I went whitewater rafting with my kids. It was a great time. It was so fun. We got to see eagles, and it was gorgeous. And then we had lunch at this beautiful little cafe. What a great day. I can envision this experience. I can see it. But if you tell me, hey, man, we went camping, and I woke up, and some alien had a finger in my ass.
The Allagash incident, they went camping, and they disappeared.
Quite a few of those, right?
There's hundreds of thousands. And here, I brought you a book. This is Bruce Maccabee's book. It's all the headlines from 1952, 432 reports given. And I'll address your specific question about people, how they relate their experiences and how genuine they feel in a second here. 432 reports given the Air Force in 1952 on aerial sightings, ships from other planet. We've got memos from the government here. Former Army pilot sees flying saucer by daylight, whatever was cited here. July 30 stories, fighter pilots at Newcastle say alert for more saucer reports. These are newspaper.
Yeah.
That's yours.
Well, newspapers never lie.
Well,
I don't know if you know that.
Well,
they never make fake stories.
Well,
they never talk shit about people.
The New York Times is pretty reliable. Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Keene are reporters for the New York Times, and they've been studying this phenomenon. They report very credibly on it. I'll tell you how an abductee's experience is related. I attended a lecture at the Fifth Avenue Medical Institute in Manhattan with my wife a few years ago. That would be about 15 years ago. And John Mack was the lecturer. You know, he wrote the book Abduction. He was the Harvard psychiatrist who wrote Abduction. You can get that up too, Abduction, John Mack.
Yes, I read that as well.
Yeah, and
that freaked a friend of mine out. She was a very pragmatic, non-UFO believing person, and we were working together on news radio, my friend Maura Tierney. And she came up to me and she goes like, this book is freaking me the fuck out. And he wrote a second book as well. Didn't he die in a car accident?
John Mack,
I believe he died in a car accident.
Stepped off a curb in a small town in England, and he was struck by a car.
Yeah.
And 3 other John Macks died the same day in England. So
you think people were whacking John Max because he knew too much?
I don't know.
Let's take
Again,
them all out.
I was at this lecture, and there were 300 abductees there. That some who he'd interviewed with, some he had not, but who were there for interested to find out more about their experience. And one guy got up and said he had one arm, and I don't know whether that was related. I don't think it was related to the experience, but he said, I'm a Wall Street broker. I'm quite well off. I have a sailboat. I was in Long Island Sound a few years ago, and a blue light hit me, and I had missing time of about 5 or 6 hours. But in it, I have filtrated memories of beings addressing me and telling me that I was powerful and influential and I could help the planet survive. And they put me back in my ship, and I woke up, and he said, I'm waiting for them to come back. I want them to come back. And I asked the room, I got up and I said, of all of you who've been taken, how many of you would want to repeat the experience or have it happen again? And about half of them said, no way they'd want to have it happen again. And half said, yeah, we'd like it to happen again. Yeah. Half, yeah.
Now, I love a
So
good
Bruce signed this to me, and I'm going to give it to you. And it's just got great. It's got great headlines from the 50s, which was a massive time for saucers. You know that famous photo of the saucers over the Capitol, the glowing lights, and yeah.
See if you can find that photo, Jamie, because it is quite interesting.
July 1952, Washington.
Do you
sightings.
think this was initiated by the detonation of the atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where they decided, okay, these fucking monkeys are doing some stupid shit. We need to go down there and see what's up and see if there's imminent danger to the cosmos. Let's find out what kind of capabilities they have. Because if you listen to Lazar, or if you believe the work of Zecharia Sitchin, or any of the people that believe that human beings were engineered, that there's the reason why there's this giant leap between us and the rest of the primates on the planet is because something came down and manipulated our genetics.
Well, the movie Mission to Mars with Tim Robbins, basically it says that. Basically it shows the face on Mars, and that is one of NASA employees' favorite movies. Yeah, there they are. Yeah. 1952 UFO incident. Thank you very much.
Look at that photo. That is a crazy
beautiful
photo.
Come on, let's go here now,
That's crazy.
folks. Yeah, that ain't an airplane. That ain't a helicopter.
No, it's a crazy photograph, and it's from 1952. I mean, the special effects back then were incredibly crude. This was something that was reported by
thousands of people. They scrambled jets from Andrews for it and everything.
As well as the Phoenix Lights.
The Phoenix Lights is fascinating because the Fife Symington, the governor, said he saw them. He made fun of it with an alien
but he
dummy.
talked about that afterwards. Yeah. He was put under pressure to do so.
Yeah.
He's in a movie called, what is it? There's a documentary on Netflix that's available that he's in, that he talks about the pressure that they put on him to make light of that incident. And he talks about his own personal experiences with seeing some sort of triangle-shaped craft that was enormous, the size of several football fields. It was flying overhead, that was completely silent, and how it freaked him out.
The triangle and delta crafts are very, very interesting. But the Tinley Park incidents of the 80s, and with Sam Maranto was the investigator there from MUFON. These things would park over the family barbecue for about half an hour, and families in suburbs were looking up at the sky being blotted out by these things parking above them. So I think it comes down to I don't think these beings, Lord Hill Norton said there were 23 different species visiting the planet in 23 different types of ships. I don't think they want a formal relationship with people on Earth. They want an informal, secret relationship. I think they probably have one with elements of black elements of the Air Force and the government. You know who David Sarita is?
I've heard his
David
name.
Sarita. You should have him on. He's very knowledgeable about this. His theory is that the Roswell event may have been precipitated by the Trinity explosion because there was such an interdimensional disturbance of the atoms being split and that explosion. There was that saucer there that went down in 47 may have been influenced somehow negatively by that explosion. Now, Stanton Friedman didn't buy that. I loved Stanton. He just passed away there. He was the expert on Roswell.
Yeah, I'm upset that I never got to meet him before he died.
He was so credible,
an
and
interesting
so great.
guy who believed in UFOs, but believed most people were lying about them.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he believed that there was a lot of horse shit going on, including Bob Lazar. He thought Bob Lazar was full of shit.
Why would Bob go out there and do that and compromise his life?
Well, let me tell you something. After talking to him for 3 hours and then having dinner with him the night before, I used to believe I had the best bullshit meter in the world, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten more honest. I didn't see anything. He's an incredibly smart guy, and he's not a guy who's like seeking out attention, and he's not profiting from this. And in fact,
just his demeanor and everything. Jeez, he's like an accountant.
He's a legitimate scientist.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him. One of the things that I engaged him with when we had dinner, we talked about science, just science in general, and we talked about all sorts of different things. And he's a scientist. He's a legit scientist. I've talked to a lot of them.
Yeah,
I know what kind of person he is.
And they just hassled him again there. They rated his nuclear isotope.
They think he has element 115. That's what they think.
Wouldn't we all love to have that?
Yeah, that's what they think. That's some artist created that thing up there with element 115. And
element 115, indeed. Well, if you get a little sliver of that, that would be pretty exciting. Yeah,
he talked openly about it in the 90s that he had managed to weasel some away from the Area S4. And they think that he still has it.
Yeah.
But there were some experiments that he had done that George Knapp had actually filmed that had showed some really bizarre distortions using this stuff, and then it was able to. I got to remember exactly what it did that they showed, but they did some experiments with like steam or smoke or something like that, where they showed element 115 emitting some sort of
vapor.
Well, no, it was emitting some sort of a field. Where you literally couldn't physically touch this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In episode 2164, Joe and Action Bronson dive into theories linking angels, demons, and interdimensional aliens. 1414, Joe Rogan and Mike Baker question whether aliens have visited Earth or simply observe us.
But yeah, if you suddenly we find that Fravors right, or that there's this contact. Oh, well, suddenly, guess what? That's it. That's the top concern at that point.
That's number one.
Right.
Yeah. So. I mean, the hope is always that if we're about to nuke ourselves into another dimension, that the aliens will come down and go, "Hey, dummies!"
Just like a 1950s movie.
Yeah. Hey, you fucking idiots! Stop doing that.
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah,
wasn't that one of them? Yeah.
Klaatu Barada Niktu.
Wow.
Remember that?
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
Day the Earth Stood Still is a great fucking movie.
It was a great movie.
It's weird. It's like a time capsule, right? Because what they thought it would look like, and the robot. That's just
No, it is. It's I love the movie. I tried to get my boys to sit and watch it not too long ago, and they were like, "Really, Dad? This is what you spend your time watching?" And,
you know what was interesting? I was like a normal thing that the family took the alien in their house.
Yeah.
Come on in, stay with us, strange person from another land.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? He's talking to the kid. Like you're not even a little suspicious. You don't think this guy might be a creep?
What's your favorite movie of sort of alien space genre movie?
Well, I like the best one is Alien, the Sigourney Weaver movie. I think
the first one.
Yeah, that's most likely what alien life is going to be like. Some horrific parasitic fucking creature that eats everything it finds.
Yeah.
That to me seems likely.
Yeah.
That seems more likely.
I remember sitting in the theater when that movie came out, watching it, and when it popped out of that guy's chest, he was, the entire theater jumped.
Yeah.
Right? It was just crazy. But
people, it's hard because you watch that movie today and you're watching it having seen all the other movies that it's affected and all the other science fiction genre movies and special effects movies, but that movie was special.
Yeah.
In 1979, when that movie came out, that was a special movie. That was a fucking horrifically scary movie, and it was realistic. Like, there was no cut the shit scenes. Everything seemed legitimate. The creature was completely unique.
Weaver was hot.
Hot as fuck.
Yeah.
Woo.
I mean, honestly, we're looking at pictures of Liz Hurley. We should be looking at Sigourney Weaver.
And that's a great movie where a woman is the hero, and you're not flinching. There's no part where you're going, what is she doing? She's kicking everybody's ass. Get the fuck out of here. That's a movie where like that's a real hero.
Yeah.
That's a real hero who rises to the occasion in this horrific situation where this ship has been overtaken by an alien. I think that there's things out there. I don't know if I believe. I want to believe that we've been visited, but I don't know if I believe.
I think there's things out there. Yeah, I'm on board with what the second part of that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it hard to believe it would be such a secret, but and also knowing the U.S. government. Look, I mean, it's harder to find out from the network when they're going to start this show than it is getting secrets out of Washington D.C. Right? So I'm thinking, we would have known for now if it had happened, but I do believe there's other shit out there, right? I can't believe we're it.
No, I don't think we're it. But
maybe we're being hopeful. I can't believe we're it. I mean, but
But I'm also fascinated to think that if they did know that that something was here, that they would visit it occasionally. Drop in on it occasionally for a scientific expedition, just see what the fuck we're up to.
Yeah, unless they just got so disgusted the last time, they just thought, that's it, I'm done.
I don't think so. We don't get disgusted. We don't get disgusted when we go visit baboons. When we study baboons, scientists return. Robert Sapolsky, he spent many years going back and forth to Africa studying baboons. And baboons are boring as fuck compared to people. if you weren't a person, if you were from some enlightened race, a million years advanced from us, you would be so fascinated to come by and look at people.
Yeah, although they probably look at us like we're a bunch of shit-flinging monkeys, so I think you're probably right. Yeah.
I mean, if we had a time machine, tell me it wouldn't be amazing if there was a time machine, but it could only go back 500,000 years ago to the beginning of man. Like the early, whatever ancient hominid that was alive back then. God damn, that would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall and watch these primitive humanoids try to figure out fire and try to figure out hunting and become what we are today.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there would probably be moments, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sit and watch the whole thing because I think that would be, boring as shit. I mean, come on, just get on with it. Chip that rock into a circle, do something with it. Come on, but I think that you're right. I mean, if there's higher life forms out there, and you'd have to assume they are higher life forms if they're traveling, these distances, and again looking at the issues of propulsion systems for hypersonic flight, et cetera. Would they look at this bunch of folks down here and think, just not interested? I don't know. I mean,
I think at a certain point in time, it would be unnecessary to physically visit. I feel like maybe
they're watching us through the Samsung TVs.
Yeah.
See, it all comes. That's the thing about it. It all comes back around full circle. Yeah.
In episode number 1465, Joe Rogan and Tim Pool dive deep into shocking UFO evidence shaking the world.
Kyle Kalinske sent me something today. I wanted you to see, Jamie. It's there's some shit going down with UFO sightings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've been played before.
Well, yeah,
I
but
don't know that they were new. But
here, I'll send it to you.
I've been following this stuff.
Yeah, it's hold on a second, Jamie.
This thing.
All right, I just texted it to you. Pentagon officially releases UFO. This is the tweet. It says, new Pentagon formally released 3 mysterious UFO videos captured by Navy pilots. The already leaked videos showed what DoD insists on calling unidentified aerial phenomenon, moving at incredible speeds and performing near impossible maneuvers. This is a weird subject because it's one of those subjects where people automatically dismiss it because it's been so touted by kooks. There's so many wacky fucks that have talked about UFOs that anybody talking about UFOs has to be out of their fucking mind. But then when you see these videos and you see them performing these impossible tasks, like these things are moving in a way that we've never seen anything move before, flipping upside down and sideways, moving at insane rates of speed. Like, they don't know what these are.
Yeah.
Aerial phenomena.
What's interesting, though, is I was reading one of these stories, and they passively mentioned that the sighting was near a U.S. naval like technology station of some sort, like a top secret development. And I'm like,
that could be one of two things: either it's developed by the people that are at that base, or they're monitoring the people that are at that base. These aircraft, we call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory nor any foreign inventory that we are aware of. Maybe they see this shit that's going down with China and all the ships being moved and like, listen, you fuckheads.
the aliens?
Yeah. Maybe they're like, listen, you fucking morons, you territorial apes.
I'd like to think that, but
You don't think so?
Manhattan Project, man. I mean, the U.S. has probably got some crazy motherfucking weapons. You know?
Could be, but the Manhattan Project was also coincidentally right after they started detonating bombs when the aliens started showing up.
That's what they think, right?
Yeah, well, that was when the bulk of U.S. sightings started jumping, and worldwide, I believe, too.
You know, maybe we've slowly been getting more and more information about this. I've been actually reading a lot of these stories over the past several months. More admissions from government, more release of documents, and more sightings. So there's been a big, I don't want to call it, well, a lot of people murmuring that April was going to be the month when we finally learn the truth. April's almost up.
It's almost up.
It's almost up.
We got like a few days.
Nah, man.
The 27th?
You know what I used?
More days is left.
Do you know?
30?
Do you know about what happened? Do you know about the O'Hare Airport sighting?
Which one's that?
So this was, I think, in like 2006 at Chicago's International O'Hare. A UFO came down and hovered above. I can't remember which terminal it was. It hovered for a few minutes, I think, and then shot straight, punched a hole in the clouds. Everybody saw it happen. Now, I had just quit working at O'Hare around this time when the sighting happened, so I had friends who were still there. I had a friend tell me that when this UFO came down, people on Mannheim Road, which is the road on the side of O'Hare, got out of their cars, like just stopped at the light, got up, and were looking and staring at it. And that the people who were working, where we worked for American Eagle Airlines, walked out of the rooms and were just staring at it float and then shoot up and punch a hole in the clouds. And you know what they said? Weather phenomenon. So there's a photo of it. A pilot took a photo of it. This is back when like very early phone cameras, so it's a very grainy, awful picture.
There it is right there.
That's not it. No, that's super fake. I think,
I don't know.
no, these are all people trying to fake it. It's really hard to find. That one is not, that one might be it, but I don't think so. It barely looks like
Chicago
anything.
O'Hare UFO sighting 2006. Is that it right there?
I do not believe those are it, no. So
Click on that article. See what it says, Jamie.
That's just some blog.
that one might be on the left, but so many people try exploiting this stuff for clicks and for views, and they make these fake photos. And
That link's not working?
I've clicked on it a few times. It's just
it was a very, very faint photo from the cockpit. It might be that one right there in the middle. On the left side.
Far left?
It might be that one. No, that's not it. That's not it. Well, there was a really crappy photo of it, and
That might be it.
that might be. It was out of the cockpit of a window. A pilot took a photo, and I wonder where have all the sightings gone since phones became ubiquitous. I mean, there's a simple, I guess excuse. The aliens, they're sentient. They know we have phones. They're like, okay, stop, decloaking or whatever. But I wonder if, why is it there were so many UFOs and then around the time cell phone cameras come out, they're gone.
Well, I think most people are full of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people like to pretend they see things that don't really see things. But
Yep.
I don't think that excludes the possibility. It's not like these things are mutually exclusive. Like people are full of shit, therefore aliens don't exist. I think aliens could be real and people are full of shit. And I think that it's very rare that they visit us. But if they
Why
do,
would they?
how often do scientists go to the Congo to study chimps? I mean, how many people do they send to the bottom of the ocean to look for new life forms? How rare is it?
Let me trip you out.
Okay.
On that idea. We put decoys up for animals. Animals can't tell the difference. What if you've actually met a decoy person and you couldn't tell the difference?
Maybe it's you, bro.
Maybe it's me. That's right.
And that's why you're able to work so much.
Oh, yeah, I'm a robot.
You don't get tired.
No.
So you're interested in news and disseminating factual evidence.
Because what I'm actually doing is collecting a database for the aliens. No, but I thought about this because I saw a photo on Reddit of a puffin, I think it's called, the bird, and they put up a fake puffin, and it's because I think they're called puffins. It's because the birds don't like nesting in places where they're alone, and so by putting the decoy there, the other birds would start coming, and like one bird showed up and was hanging out with the decoy, and I'm like, could you imagine like you see like we put duck decoys in the water, we do duck calls, and the duck's like, ooh, hey, fly honey, I'm gonna come over and check this out, and it's like a wood block. Could you imagine like seeing like a beautiful woman or someone you're attracted to and being like, "Ooh, look at that!" And it's really like an alien decoy just to like probe you and like better understand you or something.
Well, the decoy, just the term decoy is weird because decoys are used for hunting. Like turkey, it's turkey season right now.
Yeah.
And the way most guys hunt for turkeys, they take a rubber turkey. You put that fucker out in the middle of the field, and then you hide behind a bush with a shotgun. You go, buck, 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 buck. And then the turkeys like hear it, and they come over and they try to get some pussy, and then they get shot.
So what if you see some dude and or it's like you see it for you, it'd probably be a beautiful woman, you want to get that pussy, and and then she's going like, hey, come over here, and you're like, oh, hey, me, and
then I get eaten.
No, they just take you up in the ship, probe you, and learn about your butt.
This is the thing about putting things up your butt.
I'm
Most
just kidding,
doctors don't even do that. Like they have MRIs now. Do you think aliens need to probe you in your ass? I think it's just what everyone's afraid of. They're afraid of things going in their ass. So that's what they think is going to happen if the aliens get them. They're going to freeze me and touch my ass.
Somebody told a dumb story back in the day, and it was the most sensational version. Everybody had to have it, so they were like, that's what they went with.
Maybe, or maybe they do that to keep your mouth shut. They fuck you in the ass just so you keep your mouth shut.
Or some dude actually got abducted, right?
Yeah.
And he comes back and he's like, they think they won against me. They think they beat me. They put stuff up my butt. They're weirdos.
Do you ever hear the story of Betty and Barney Hill?
No.
It's the very first UFO abduction story. It's an ancient story. And what's crazy is Angela Hill, who's a UFC fighter, I had her on the podcast, and after the show, she told me her grandpa was Barney Hill.
Whoa.
And I was like, holy fuck. Like, we didn't talk about it during the show, but she wanted to bring it up because she knows I'm kind of obsessed with UFOs. But the account that they have, like, they get hypnotized, and he's recalling the abduction, and they have, like, the same story. It's very terrifying. You hear him crying and screaming, and, that he was taken aboard this craft and examined and brought back, and they have missing time. But here's the thing. If they only did that occasionally, if they only came down once every few years and just scooped some person up in the middle of some rural place, like if you're flying over, I think their instance was I believe it was in Maine. If you're flying over somewhere like Maine, which is a very low population state, and you see a lone car, and it's just traveling along the highway, and there's places in Maine where you go from like Portland to Bangor. When you're traveling on that road, it's like 60 miles with nothing, not a gas station, nothing. If you were an alien and you saw a car by itself, you're like, no other car, let's move in, we got one.
Isn't it just easier to think it's the U.S. government?
No.
Why not?
Because we don't have the capability of doing something like that. I don't think the capability of the scientists working for the government is any different than the capability of the scientists that are working for Project X or, fill in the blanks in terms of like what Raytheon, publicly traded companies.
How long? Look, quadcopters don't seem all that complicated to me. Right?
Quadcopters.
Yeah. Like
helicopters?
Like drones. We've seen the little drone toys you buy. They got 4 propellers. Take that concept, use thinner, jets and surround it in a disc so that it's, universally, like it can move in any direction because it's got, because it's omnidirectional. What
power source? Where's the gas tank?
Lithium-ion battery. Or
come on, man. You're talking space shit. Like this hasn't even been invented yet. Think about how little mileage you can get out of a Tesla. As advanced as Tesla is, still when it's going full out, it can only go for. You get 307 miles if you drive like a grandma, but if you drive like a maniac, you don't even get half that.
You know that they, I could be wrong with this, but I'm pretty sure that they had this flying platform in the 70s that uses gas power. And they've also had jetpacks for a long time.
No, they've had, sort of. They've had jetpacks that are capable of going for like 30 seconds. They don't. I've experienced.
No.
these.
I'm pretty sure the jetpacks back in the day went for a long time.
No,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
definitely didn't.
We can look it up.
Yeah, let's look it up because they
'Cause
definitely didn't. The whole thing was the fact they were burning gas, and to propel you in the air, they only had a certain amount.
I thought it was like 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes.
Maybe now.
My understanding of why we abandoned jetpack technology was that it was inefficient and heavy, and you couldn't carry it without it being turned on. So they opted for larger, what are they called? Chinooks, helicopters that can carry multiple people at once. When you're wearing a jetpack, it has to be on idle, negating its own weight, which means it's burning as you're walking around, which means you get a good 20-minute jump and you got to abandon the tech. And then you don't want your enemies to get it.
Have you ever seen a guy fly a jetpack?
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube.
No,
from a long
I mean
time
in
ago.
real life.
Oh, I've seen that one guy, the Iron Man dude.
Well,
Not in real life.
I've been there in real
Yeah.
life. My friend Willie B from in Denver on the radio.
Yeah.
He had a radio show in the morning. I used to do his radio show. I think he still has a radio show. Shout out to Willie. And he had this guy who was a jetpack pilot who came in the parking lot of the radio studio, and fans of the radio show came and did it too, and watched it rather. And this guy flew in the air for about 15, 20 seconds and then landed. This guy was so banged up. Both of his legs were blown apart. He had big braces on both of his knees. I'm like, what happened to your knees? He's like, just crash landing. Both my knees are blown to shit. He had no ACLs in either one of his knees. But
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's good
Jetpacks.
this is back then. It was
Right.
good for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds of flying.
Well, so the point I was trying to get to is if you take something like a quadcopter, you could absolutely fuel it with gas or
It'd be
whatever.
loud as fuck.
But it would depending on how you mitigate
It'd be
the
an
noise.
engine. It'd be an engine.
Yeah.
It'd be loud as fuck.
And you'd hear from the quad rotors.
Yeah, but what these people are describing is nothing like that. These people are describing things that are silent, that go from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in a split second, things that defy physics
right.
as we understand them.
Yeah.
This is not something that I think that the U.S. government has. If you look at like Elon Musk company, Project X or SpaceX. SpaceX is right now one of the premier civilian companies, private companies that's making rocket ships. They fuck up all the time.
Totally.
They're in the middle of innovating all the time. He's one of the smartest people on earth. He's one of in terms of technology, he knows as much about propulsion as anyone, and they still can't get it right. They're still trying to figure it out. They're trying to come up with something that could be viable in terms of commercial space flight, and they're working on it daily. And these people are the brightest minds we know of right now that are in this jet propulsion, space travel business. There's, Virgin's working on something. There's a couple other companies that are working on things as well. And then you have NASA, which the best they could come up with was the space shuttle.
Right.
Do you think that there was something way better than space shuttle that they just never used, and that they had, and they kept it on the back burner, didn't want to let anybody know, but the way they would use it is they would pick people up and erase their memory and toy
Experiment
with their
on them?
asshole? That's crazy.
Well,
That's less likely than the hundreds of billions of galaxies just in our own known universe, right? Each one with hundreds of billions of stars, each star with who knows how many fucking planets. That's somewhere out there that's something more advanced than us. Maybe 1,000 years, maybe 1,000,000 years.
But
that's figured out how to come here.
I got the same question then. Why hasn't anyone discovered them? Why has SETI failed? Search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Why
Pulled up
haven't the
nothing.
chimps invented guns?
They've started using more tools, but
Right. Why haven't they invented guns, though?
I don't know.
So why hasn't SETI found UFOs? It's the same fucking answer. They're not advanced enough yet. It's a real simple answer. The industrial age is pretty fucking recent.
Right.
I mean, you think about when people invented cars. You're talking about 1800. That's really recent.
And we've
Plane
only used
flights,
radio-
1800s.
High power radio transmission is only in the past 100 years or so.
Right. Well, you ever seen the movie Contact?
Maybe that's an old one, right?
It's Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. It's based on Carl Sagan's book about contact with space and with aliens and how it's going to go down.
I think I did see it recently. I can't remember.
Interesting take on it. But
Oh,
the
yeah,
idea is that they've received the signal that we sent out way back, in the day. Actually, when the first broadcast signal was Hitler announcing the Olympic Games, the start of the Berlin
wow.
Games. And this was the first signal they got. It was a really controversial moment in the movie, or controversy, in the plot, with that once they were trying to decipher the image that was being sent, they realized it was Hitler.
Yeah.
The first thing they see is a swastika, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?"
They sent it back to us,
and then they had to realize, "Oh no, this is the first image that we sent out to space." They wouldn't be able to understand the political or historical context of this, and
well, so I got a few. There's a few issues I see in terms of aliens and Earth contact. Right, we are substantially more connected, in an evolutionary chain to ants than we are to any alien. So we can't communicate with them for the most part. We kind of can. We understand how they communicate. But when an ant sees a superhighway, this is someone else's quote, they don't think twice. So it's possible there are aliens that have superhighways right above us. We can't tell what it is. Same as a dog doesn't understand other than stay away from it. But one of the issues I think is often neglected in the conversation about aliens is the we assume aliens would be on a very similar planet to us. We assume that they would have some kind of gaseous atmosphere, perhaps it's a liquid atmosphere. And one of the things that I would ask of a researcher, because I'm not the expert, is the fact that we have the proper balance of oxygen in the atmosphere to manipulate fire, which allows us to separate elements and then create computers and components and fuels, wouldn't exist on a planet without the same atmosphere we existed in.
Okay, stop. I can answer that really easily.
Yeah.
There's no known propulsion system for any of these crafts. These things are not using fire. They don't have a heat signal. They don't know what they are. They don't know how they work.
I don't mean propulsion. I mean the separation of elements, the manipulation of elements, right? So we melt things and separate them and break them down.
They don't believe that that's how it works.
No, but I mean, like, how do you even start from... I'm sure there's an answer. Let's say you have a species that lives on a planet with no oxygen and has no access to fire. What energy, what dense energy source do they have that will allow them to manipulate matter?
Do you know the Bob Lazar story?
I do.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he talked about when he first stopped working for Area S4 and the government was tapping his phones, and there's a lot that can be documented about him. There's a lot that can't be. But one of the things that he talked about was a thing called element 115.
Right. That
element 115 is this insanely dense element that they use to bend gravity. And that the way he described the way the propulsion system works, it's like putting a bowling ball in the center of a very soft mattress, and that all of the other mattress, all the rest of the mass of the mattress bends around the intense mass of the bowling ball, and that this is how these incredibly advanced aliens from this other planet this is their propulsion system.
That was from Star Trek, though. The concept of warp was around for a really long time.
I think the concept is based on Einstein's theory of gravity. I mean, this is the whole idea. If you could find something that could do that. But here's the thing. When Bob Lazar talked about this in the late 80s, early 90s, this element didn't exist.
Right. Now it does.
It wasn't proven until they did it in a particle collider. I believe it was 2013. So he was talking about this element far before it was, and he's apparently, this is the big rumor, he apparently had taken some of that from a lab and through George Norrie, and was it George Norrie? Yes. They did some experiments on on television and showed that this stuff had made light and fog bend in a way that they couldn't describe.
Didn't he also claim to see a small alien creature on his way out?
He said he saw something that was sitting down, but he doesn't know if it was a model that they were using, like if they had created something that was supposed to be the size of a thing that could fit in these crafts, because these crafts, he said, were designed for things that were far smaller than human beings.
I'm pretty sure in the initial interview he gave when he went public was that he saw an alien, and then later on changed it, saying, I don't know if it was maybe a model or a puppet.
Yeah, he said he thought he saw something sitting down and two people standing over it looking at it. He said he thought he saw an alien. But he's probably... I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, he said it was literally for like a half a second. Like he's walking by a window and he sees something inside of it. Imagine being a guy who's in your 20s and you're a propulsions expert, and it's been proven that he worked at Los Alamos Labs, and it's been proven that he did put a fucking jet engine. It's been proven that he did put a jet engine on a Honda. I mean, he's a genius. And you talk to him, he's an incredibly smart guy. Now, imagine you get sent off to Area S4, and they show you this thing that doesn't even exist. And they tell you about this propulsion method that they don't understand. And they say that they found this a long time ago in an archaeological dig. and they want you to back engineer it because you're a propulsions expert, and they're running out of options. They've been studying this for decades. No one knows what the fuck it is or how you can make it work. And then they do test flights with this thing. And then he tells his friends about these test flights. After he gets fired, you know how he got fired? Do you know a story about him getting fired?
He leaked it or something, yeah?
No, his wife was fucking her flight instructor.
Oh.
And so when his wife was fucking her flight instructor, they told him he couldn't work anymore. And he's like, why not? Well, they were tapping his phone because when you have top secret clearance to work on UFOs, I guess they don't want your wife fucking her flight instructor because then you're going to go crazy and you have a lot of imbalance at home, right? So he doesn't know why. They don't tell him why. So he takes his friends and he tells them, listen, this is real. They're running these experiments. I know you're thinking I'm crazy. This is what I've been working on. So he takes them to this area where you used to be able to have access to, but once he did this, they closed off access and pushed it far back to where the public has access to. And he showed them these things doing these impossible maneuvers in the desert, in the night sky.
This I remember.
And so then he gets arrested. And so when he gets arrested, he was in fear of his own life. He goes public and tells this whole story. And then they erase his past. They erase his social security number. They erase his education background. Even though people that knew him and knew he worked at Los Alamos Labs, he takes George Norrie of a tour of Los Alamos Labs, knows the people that work there. They all say hi to him. He takes them on a tour around the laboratory.
Yeah.
Shows them around, shows them the devices they use for biometric security. And
I think the one thing you can't ignore is that there was documentation that he did work at one of these places.
Yes.
And they later claimed he didn't.
Yes.
And like I think I was watching the thing on, maybe it was Netflix. I think like he promoted that, right? It was on Netflix. They show the paper like we found it.
Yes.
Like he clearly was there.
He was in the employee register.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No.
But you know, for me, man, I'd love to believe it all.
He's been insanely consistent about that story.
Yeah.
For 40 years.
I want to believe. You know what I mean?
Or 30 years, whatever it's been. I want to believe too. That's the problem.
Man, Pixar
the problem
didn't
is
happen.
I want to believe, but that's nonsense. Pixar, it didn't happen is nonsense.
Well,
how do you what about Neanderthals?
No,
what about dinosaurs? There's no pics.
I'm more so joking, right? What I mean is, show me the evidence, right?
I get it.
Let's, the challenge with any theory. I don't like saying conspiracy theory because they're not always conspiracies. Is that people want something to be true. And so they end up looking for things to justify what they think it already is.
Of course.
Instead of starting with what you've got and trying to figure out where it goes from there.
But when you start with what you've got a guy who was living in Vegas, was taking these flights out to Area S4, knows the place, knows it inside out, can describe it very accurately. Also worked at Los Alamos Labs, describes that very accurately.
Right.
Yeah,
it proves he worked there.
Yeah, but also proves he's also a legitimate scientist.
But what
when you talk to the guy, he's a brilliant guy. He's not a nut.
Right.
But what?
Are you saying aliens?
That doesn't mean aliens.
No, I'm just asking. So
it doesn't mean aliens, but that's what he was told.
Right.
What he was told is this is something that has come from somewhere else, and they're trying to figure out how to work it, how to use it.
What if we're in a simulation? And this was something that was leftover code, or it wasn't supposed to be placed in this certain iteration.
Or what if there's multiple dimensions that we don't have access to, and that these things do?
Joe Rogan and GSP revisit childhood alien memories and explore consciousness beyond dreams and reality.
Are you still interested in aliens? Is that
yeah,
still,
man.
Still?
So that's the thing. When I first came on your show, you cut me really off guard. Because most people that we talk about aliens, they completely think you're crazy or you disregard. Right. It's like, oh, you gotta talk about they most people that attract with so you feel like ridiculous.
Right.
Then after I found out you read a lot about that stuff, like the Sumerian text, the creation tablet, Zechariahization and all that stuff. And I do too. I mean, I don't know if there is alien, I think there would be life form. I don't know if it's intelligence. We don't have evidence for it.
Right.
And I think our ego as human being want us to believe that the alien came and interact with us.
Yes.
That's our ego. But if they're that far in advance from us and they come from a different world, maybe they don't want to interact because we have nothing to offer them. They're not going to kidnap a farmer and ask him what kind of suspension he's wearing. You know what I mean? Like They think, you know what I mean? It's
But think about what you just said about paleontology. I mean, we're paying attention to stupid fucking lizards that lived 65 million years ago.
it's true.
I mean, don't you think they would be curious? This weird monkey with nuclear weapons?
Yeah, but we don't communicate with it. We don't interact.
Right.
We observe. There's ways that they can learn from us without communicate. I don't know. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I think it's our ego that make us. We want to feel special. We want to feel that like, oh, we're different. You know, like we're different beings than, for example, a dog. Or we can think because we're smart, but like I don't know how this have been giving to us. Like I don't know. You know, like, and you were talking about it. Like when I was young, I used to have. Like we talked about it last time. You said, oh, you were talking about like the experience. I said, I remember that I remembered, but I can't recall it. When I was young, I don't know if it's a dream. I remember I used to draw figure of monster. I say my mom is it's the monster. They come get me at night. That's why that's what we talked last time.
Right.
But I was very uncomfortable. And I didn't want to talk about it because I was like, man, how the hell he knows it? You know everything, man. This guy, he knows everything. He made research and stuff. So I made the drawing, and then my mom, even now today, I said, hey, I want to see the drawing, you know, like, I showed the drawing, and I'm like, and then after I remember later, I remember that I remember, but I couldn't remember. You understand what I mean? I remembered that I remember that's something that happened, but now I can't remember what exactly happened.
Right.
Could be a nightmare, could be another sleep paralysis or
paralysis. Yeah.
My imagination. I don't have evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's why we talked about it last time, and that's what happened to me. And I hope it's nightmare. It's nightmare. You know what I mean? But the thing is, later on, I saw some documentary on TV. I saw some people that had the similar experience as me, loss of memory and things like this when they were young, and they claim they get a hypnose and stuff. Then they go back in time and they explain they get abducted by alien. Then I start to freak out about it because I said, man, is that what happened to me? But there is a lot more logical explanation. You know what I mean? But that's why when you brought that back, I freaked out. I was like, how the hell he knows this? Like, how the hell he knows this? Like, I didn't want to talk about it, but then it was also my agent was there. He's like, hey, we need in 10 minutes. I'm like, we were misinformed. We didn't know that podcast was like that long and this. I was like, all these things in my head, like, beep, 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 and I didn't know what to make of it, you know? So that's what it was.
Yeah. It's entirely possible that we're experiencing something when we're dreaming, that when we're sleeping, when we're unconscious, that maybe there's dimensions that the consciousness travels to that are non-physical. That like this dimension, what we're in right now, we could touch this table, move this microphone around. Yeah. These are physical dimensions. But it's entirely possible that whatever your spirit is, or your consciousness, or your mind, when you're thinking of your thoughts and your soul, that you
said you're a soul.
Yeah, whatever that means.
You believe is a soul. You believe.
I don't know what that means, though.
Okay,
okay. It's a weird word, right? Okay. It has religious connotations, but
I agree.
But the idea of whatever your essence is as a human being, there's something inside of all of us that makes us conscious and aware and there, and then that something is not there when you're sleeping. And so is it dormant? Is it just recovering, which is, the scientific version of it? Or is it possible that while you're in this dream state and your body shuts off, that your mind and your consciousness travels to a non-physical dimension that you can only access through the chemicals that are released in your brain, which we know produce psychedelic experiences. So if you took the chemicals that are released during your brain or inside your brain, like dimethyltryptamine, and there's all sorts of different psychedelic chemicals that are produced by the mind. If you take these outside of the dream state, if you take these drugs, you have these crazy, fantastic experiences. And we know these are produced by the brain.
They produce. They produce by the brain also.
Yes, they're produced by the brain. They're produced by the liver and the lungs.
Yeah.
We believe they're produced by your third eye, which is your pineal gland. They've shown, the Cottonwood Research Foundation has shown that this is done in rats, that rats produce dimethyltryptamine in their pineal gland. Doesn't necessarily mean that people do, but it's logical to imply that people probably, or conclude that people probably do it as well. So those chemicals that are producing these psychedelic experiences are being released by the brain, but we don't know why, and we don't know what they're doing.
When you sleep, like you have a guy, Matthew Walker.
Yes, it was amazing, right?
When you sleep, your guardian, your logic is not there. That part of your brain is gone.
Right. Yeah.
So that's probably the most logical experience. But it's kind of a freaking scary thought of thinking that, man, is like it make you wonder. Sometimes you're at night alone and you're thinking, man. I mean, I'm a guy that think a lot. I'm thinking about all kind of scenario. Like in a fight, I think about all scenario, but in life, I'm the same way. Yeah. I'm thinking, what if this happened for real, or what if, like, man, it's a scary talk, man. It's nothing more scary in the world.
Episode number 2349 with Danny Jones, Joe Rogan dives into centuries-old UFO sightings and mind-bending underwater encounters.